My mother had been talking about my sister's upcoming wedding for months, and every conversation in the house seemed to orbit around her dress, her venue, her colors, and her so-called perfect future. I had learned to stay silent, to nod when required, and to keep my emotions tucked away where no one could see them. It wasn't that I didn't love my sister, I did. But the way my mother praised her, adored her, practically worshipped her, made it impossible not to feel like I was merely a background character in my own family. And recently, she had added a new line to her script, one she repeated with frustrating frequency: "When's your turn? When will we get to plan your perfect day?" The irony was that my perfect day had happened already. It took place quietly, without the spotlight, without the applause, without my mother's suffocating expectations. It was simple, intimate, and full of love, exactly what I had always wanted. But I never spoke about it. I knew if I told my mother I had married the man she despised, the man she insisted was beneath our family, she would turn the entire house into a storm. So I kept my life private, protected, almost sacred in its secrecy. Only a handful of people knew, my closest friends and my husband's family. Everyone else, including my own mother, went on believing I was waiting, lonely and behind in life, while my sister moved ahead with her picture-perfect wedding. As the wedding drew near, the house became a spinning tornado of planning and stress. My mother assigned me tasks as if I were a paid assistant rather than her daughter. "Pick up the flowers," she would say. "Confirm the seating chart, make sure the bridesmaids' dresses are steamed." I had become invisible, serving silently in the background while she and my sister basked in the glow of anticipation. And every time I finished one task, my mother would look at me with a mix of pity and irritation. "You know," she would say, "if you put in even half this effort into your own life, you might actually find someone." I always bit my tongue. It wasn't worth arguing, not when the truth would only create chaos. My husband and I had agreed to wait until after the wedding to share the news. We didn't want to overshadow my sister, and we definitely didn't want to face my mother's scrutiny in the days leading up to her big event. So every time the subject came up, I swallowed my irritation and quietly walked away. The moment that shifted everything happened at a family dinner 2 weeks before the wedding. My mother was animated, practically glowing with excitement as she talked about floral arrangements. My sister sat beside her, showing off pictures from her last fitting. My father, as usual, stayed mostly silent, occasionally nodding. And I sat there, eating slowly, hoping the evening would end without my mother turning to me. She didn't. Of course she didn't. "So," she said suddenly, her voice loud enough to cut through the clinking of plates, "your sister's wedding is going to be perfect. But honestly, when is your turn? You're getting older. It's embarrassing to have one daughter so successful, so put together, and the other, drifting." The table went quiet, even my sister looked uncomfortable. I felt the familiar burn rise in my chest, the mix of anger, sadness, and exhaustion that had built up over years of being overlooked and underestimated. My mother's eyes stayed fixed on me, waiting for me to make some self-deprecating joke or wave off her comment with fake humility. But something inside me snapped. I put down my fork calmly, wiped my mouth, and looked directly at her. "My turn," I said. It already happened. Her smile froze. My father looked up, confused. My sister blinked. The entire table seemed to pause. "What do you mean?" my mother demanded. "What happened?" I took a slow breath. "I'm married," I said simply. "I got married months ago." Silence. The kind that expands and tightens the air until breathing becomes difficult. My mother's face shifted through 3 different expressions: disbelief, shock, and finally, offense. "You're joking," she said, her voice trembling. "You would never make such a major decision without involving your family." "I did," I said. "Because it was my decision. And my life." My father leaned forward. "To who?" I met his eyes. "To Daniel." The name was enough. My mother's hand flew to her chest as if she'd been physically struck. She had always disliked Daniel, claiming he wasn't good enough, that he lacked the status and prestige she wanted for her daughters. She never bothered to see how deeply he cared for me, how he treated me with the respect and gentleness she rarely gave. "You married that man behind our backs?" she whispered. "Yes," I replied, "because I wanted a peaceful wedding. I didn't want judgment or drama or to feel like I was disappointing you. And most of all, I didn't want my love story to be measured against someone else's idea of perfection." My sister stared at me with wide eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to take attention from your wedding," I said. "You deserve your day." My mother pushed back her chair, anger spilling from every word. You have ruined everything, she said. This family deserves better than secrets and shame. I stood up quietly. No, I said. This family deserves honesty and acceptance. I'm done hiding who I am because it doesn't fit your version of perfect. And for the first time in years, I walked away from the table knowing I had chosen myself, my happiness, my marriage, and my peace, over their expectations. My mother had always been quick with her judgments, especially when it came to comparing me with my sister. To her, my sister was the perfect daughter, engaged, young, successful, outgoing, and everything she believed a woman should be. I, on the other hand, was the one she treated like a question mark, someone who hadn't figured out her life, someone who needed guidance, pressure, and constant reminders that I was somehow behind. For years, I ignored her remarks, pretending they didn't sting, pretending they didn't chip away at me bit by bit. But there was one thing she never knew, one truth that I kept close to my heart: I was already married. Not only that, my husband was someone she never accepted, someone she dismissed as unworthy of me from the first moment she met him. His name was Daniel, and he was everything I needed: steady, kind, patient, and loyal. He was never flashy, never the kind of man who impressed my mother with his job title or his family connections. She never cared to understand him beyond her own narrow expectations. Every time he came around, she would find a way to correct him, point out something he was doing wrong, or make a subtle comment about how I deserved someone who could match my sister's fiancé. Those comments were the reason we chose to marry quietly, away from all the noise and comparison. We had a simple ceremony, just close friends and his family, under a small gazebo lit with warm lights. It was perfect for us, even if it was far from my mother's idea of perfection. Despite being married, I never spoke about it at home. My mother's constant remarks about my empty future became almost a routine. She never suspected that her words were meaningless to me because I had already built the life she thought I was missing. I stayed silent because I didn't want to cause trouble before my sister's wedding. But silence is a fragile shield, and eventually, it cracks. The day everything changed was a Sunday afternoon, when my mother called a family meeting in the living room. She sat on the couch with her arms crossed, her posture stiff with authority. My father sat beside her, half listening as usual, and my sister lounged on the chair opposite me, scrolling on her phone. I had no idea what the meeting was for until my mother announced that she wanted to discuss everyone's future. I immediately felt a knot form in my stomach. She began with my sister, praising her upcoming marriage, her career growth, her success. My sister simply smiled, used to the attention. Then my mother turned to me with a look that was half disappointment and half interrogation. "You're 27, she said sharply. "It's time you stop pretending life will magically sort itself out. Your sister is settling down. She has stability. She has a plan. What about you? At this rate, you'll be alone forever." Her words hit me like a sudden gust of cold wind. My sister glanced up from her phone, looking embarrassed for me. My father shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. But my mother continued, relentless as always. "Why can't you find someone? What are you waiting for? Your standards can't possibly be that high." For a moment, I felt that familiar heaviness sink into my chest, the same feeling I'd battled for years, the feeling of being measured and found lacking. But this time, something was different. I wasn't the lost daughter she believed me to be. I wasn't drifting or waiting. I had a husband who loved me deeply, and a marriage that brought me peace. And I was tired of letting my mother speak about me like I was incomplete. I took a deep breath. "I'm not waiting for anything," I said quietly. My mother scoffed. "Then explain why you're still single." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm married." Silence fell instantly. My sister's mouth dropped open. My father blinked in confusion. But my mother froze, her expression hardening into disbelief. "What did you just say?" she asked. "I'm married," I repeated. "I've been married for months." My mother's voice cracked as she raised it. "To who? Don't tell me it's that boy, Daniel." "It is," I said, meeting her eyes without flinching. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. "You married him, without telling us, without asking for our approval." Her voice trembled with anger, but beneath it, I could sense something else. Hurt, perhaps, or the shock of realizing I had a life she knew nothing about. My sister leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell us? Why hide something so big?" "Because I knew how Mom would react," I said. "Because every time I tried to make my own choices, I was told I wasn't good enough or wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't want my wedding to be judged before it even happened." My mother stood abruptly, her frustration boiling over. I cannot believe you would betray your family like this. You chose him over us. I shook my head. I chose peace. I chose a marriage built on love instead of expectations. You never gave him a chance. You never cared about how he made me feel. You only cared about how he looked to you. My father spoke softly for the first time. Are you happy? He asked. Yes, I answered immediately. Happier than I've ever been. He nodded slowly, and I saw something soften behind his eyes. But my mother was still furious, pacing the room as if trying to process the impossible. You've embarrassed this family, she said. Your sister is having her moment, and now you drop this on us. I didn't bring this up to steal anything from her, I said. I'm proud of her, but I'm tired of being mocked for something that isn't true. I'm not lost, I'm not alone, I'm married, and I'm done hiding who I am just to fit your version of success. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother speechless. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free.